Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Natural Resource Stewardship and Science Monthly Webinar. My name is Christy Burnett, and I'm joining you from the Natural Resources Office of Communication in very, very hot Fort Collins, Colorado today. Each month we get together at this time and talk about some natural resource issues and topics that affect parks. We share a little bit about what we're doing here in NRSS and how you can get involved. So thank you for joining us today. It's going to be a good afternoon, I think. I did put a link in the chat box about for live captioning, so we are happy to offer that service to you. So if you need it, go ahead and click on that, and it'll open in a new window. So this address that's on your screen right now is a link to our monthly webinar SharePoint site. This is a really great resource for you. This is where you can register for upcoming webinars, and you can also watch recordings of previous webinars. So it's really handy. We also put questions that weren't answered and documents if you need them, some other resources. So go ahead and bookmark that one. It's really handy. Alrighty, so next month's webinar is going to be super good. It's about a new program, the Scientist in Parks. It's like a new program that's combining 3 other programs. So it's pretty intense there, I guess. So we're going to have Melanie, Lima, and Kirsten, who are the program managers of this, and they will be here next month, August 12th, and we'll go ahead and get a registration link for you in the chat panel as well. So a little bit about format today. Our presenters have about 45 minute presentation prepared. Throughout their presentation, whenever they're talking, you can go ahead and enter any questions you may have, and we'll get those answered at the end. I'll just compile them, and then the last 10 to 15 minutes are set aside for questions. And then speaking of questions, they actually have 2 questions for you. There will be 2 quick polls during this webinar today, so I hope that you can take a quick break and just answer the question real quick. And I also want to pass on, if you have a topic that you would like to learn more about, or if you have a lot of questions or issues about that you would like to see presented on this webinar series, feel free to send me an email, and I'll see if I can get that on the schedule coming up. So today's presentation is all about lighting practices, and it is going to be a good one. We have 2 presenters from our Natural Sounds and Night Skies division, and they are going to talk about some tools that help park managers and facilities divisions make night sky friendly choices for outdoor lighting. And if you're attending this webinar, you already understand how important that is. It's important because it reduces light pollution, reduces night sky views. It harms the nocturnal environment. And also when we take on these good lighting practices, we set a good example for our neighbors and also for park visitors. So this really is a great topic, and I'm happy to have Ashley and Sherilyn here today. Ashley Pipkin is a biologist with the Natural Sounds and Night Skies division, and she serves the Unified Regions 8, 9, 10, and 12. And she helps answer natural sound and night sky technical assistance requests. And Ashley is based at Lake Mead National Recreation Area. And also joining us today is Sherilyn Anderson. She is a geographer, and she does landscape modeling of night skies and natural sounds. And she uses mapping tools to understand park lighting. She is stationed in my same office, Fort Collins, and I miss Sherilyn. I'm looking forward to seeing her again here really, well, maybe sometime soon, I'm not sure. But at this point, I will go ahead and turn it over to, I guess, Ashley first. So welcome, Ashley and Sherilyn. Are you there, Ashley?
Yeah, thanks. I was just getting my screen posted. Thanks so much, Christy. I really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who is able to join. Can you see? You can see us on the screen, right, Christy?
You look great.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, perfect. So thanks everyone for joining today. As Christy mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about night sky resource protection, about appropriate lighting, and how you can manage that lighting with a lighting inventory tool. Whenever I give talks to the public, I usually talk about how cool it is that we have a mission that includes inspiration and enjoyment as a critical part of our founding legislation. And when I talk to Park Service, I usually don't bring this up, but I think 2020 has been a really hard year for many of us, being away from colleagues, and also maybe not being able to spend as much time in the parks or the places that we really love. So I just thought I'd kick us off with a really nice quote, mainly to inspire us and remind us how important our parks are and our connection not only to the night sky, but everything that we do in nature and in protecting cultural resources as well. So I'm just going to read this quote to start us off. It's from a book called The Outermost House that Henry Beston wrote when he spent a year on Cape Cod. So it goes, nature is a part of our humanity, and without some awareness and experience of that divine mystery, man ceases to be man. When the Pleiades and the wind and the grass are no longer a part of the human spirit, a part of very flesh and bone, man becomes, as it were, a kind of cosmic outlaw, having neither the completeness and integrity of the animal nor the birthright of a true humanity. I feel better already. Okay, so moving on and thinking about that inspiration that parks provide, many parks have been working on interpreting and preserving the night sky and having night sky programs with night sky rangers and telescopes to help visitors really see the stars that they may not have any familiarity with in their own backyards, like the asterism Pleiades that Henry Beston mentioned in that previous quote. At its essence, this is why the parks are considered so special, because we protect and share those special resources with the public. We hold something that our visitors may not have access to, and they come to parks to learn why the night sky is so important. Many parks have received outside recognition for this achievement by becoming a certified night sky park, and while we will not discuss night sky certification specifically today, we do encourage participants to contact Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division if you are interested in becoming a Night Sky certified park. And you can do that with our wonderful partners, the International Dark Sky Association. Many of the steps that we outlined in today's presentation are crucial in becoming an IDA Dark Sky Park. So in addition to the amazing night sky experience parks provide to visitors, we have the primary responsibility to protect resources. Protecting the night sky means protecting natural and cultural resources and habitat, as well as the experience for visitors. This is, of course, very important because 62% of all species are most active at nighttime. So nocturnal species have senses that have evolved to really thrive in these low light conditions. Nocturnal wildlife differ from humans in that they stay up all night and rest during the day. And we humans, on the other hand, are awake for most of the day and typically go to sleep at nighttime. Not all of us, but some of us. While pollutants in the air and water have impacted all living things on the planet, humans who are diurnal have mostly ignored or at least not taken artificial light at night as a serious pollutant because we have not realized how it impacts the nocturnal world. And even for diurnal wildlife that sleep at night, their life cycles are still disrupted by artificial light at night. The nighttime streetlights that shine into my window at night can be mitigated by drawing the shades, but wildlife does not have this luxury. Protecting park resources means protecting nocturnal habitats. So in these low light conditions, that can mean making sure the brightest part of the landscape for nesting sea turtles is still the ocean, or the brightest part of the landscape is a white flower on a Joshua tree for a yucca moth to be able to pollinate it. So in addition to natural resources, cultural connections can also be lost. Many parks like Delicate Arch and Moab and Old Faithful and Yellowstone have day and night programming, providing opportunities to connect with the cultural landscape during both times. We are also tied to the landscape of the past when we look at the night sky. People all across the northern hemisphere saw a bear when they looked at the Greek constellation Ursa Major. The Greeks meticulously recorded these constellations that are still used in science today, but many indigenous people still share that oral history. And after we lose access to the stars, the richness of many oral histories are diminished. Of course, we are concerned about losing our night sky because of the growing threats of light pollution. While at times it can feel like an uphill battle to reduce light pollution coming from outside of your park boundaries, in urban areas and communities, all parks can mitigate the light that trespasses onto our neighbor's property while reducing the impact of glare and artificial light at night within our own park boundaries. And we do this by reducing the amount of light we use and by using night sky friendly lighting. So let me see if I can get my laser pointer. So this is a satellite map of the United States, and you can see all the red spots are pretty bright, and the dark spots are pretty, don't have a lot of light pollution. But this area, this photo was taken on the ground at Acadia National Park in this relatively dark area, but we can still see light coming from our neighbor's property. Today, what we're going to focus on is how to prevent light spilling out from our parks and how to set a good example with night sky friendly lighting within our parks. And we know we can do this because we've done it before. We can have lights and we can keep them sustainable. Parks that are open at night typically require some degree of lighting. Even for those not open at night, a very few small lights that can temporarily provide wayfinding can help employees navigate at night. So these pictures were both taken by the same calibrated camera, and in 2003 you can see how much brighter the light was than in 2011 when night sky friendly lighting was used in the park, was retrofitted. And not only do I want you to take a look at each of these bright spots on the map, but I want you to look at the mountain in the background and how it's illuminated in 2003 and kept relatively dark in 2011. So that leads us to our first poll question, actually. Big Bend is in a rural part of Texas, but urban skies are also really important to keep dark. For some visitors, it's the darkest spot, the most access that you have to a natural night sky. So Christy, go ahead and open up the poll.
Okay, Ashley, those responses are coming in. So we'll close it here just a few minutes after we get or not a few minutes, 2 seconds rather. Okay, it looks like we've had about 80% of the people answer, and it looks like about 43% are rural, and then more evenly split between urban and somewhere in between. So yeah. Thanks everybody for responding.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And those are really interesting results. I think when the Night Skies program first started, we really put a lot of emphasis on rural parks. But as more and more folks have been really enthusiastic about the night sky and what we can see, more urban parks and the somewhere in between parks have been having more night sky programs and realizing how important it is to explain this resource and protect that resource within their parks. Okay. Oh, my mouse is, okay, we'll do it that way. So recently, the Illumination Engineering Society and the International Dark Sky Association collaborated on establishing best practices for night sky lighting. And the IES is a standards organization, so for your outdoor lighting in on your street or in your parking lot, or the outdoor lighting that you even buy at Home Depot for your own house, a lot of those standards for lighting are set by the IES. The IDA, the International Dark Sky Association, is an advocacy organization that promotes natural night skies. So it's really great that these two teamed up to establish these 5 principles. And when lighting your park and when choosing lights for your park, you should follow these 5 principles. That light should be useful. That light should be targeted. You should use the lowest light levels possible to be able to wayfind or see a target in your park. That light should be controlled and the light should also have a warm color temperature. And although we're talking about park lighting today, this can be used in your community, in urban areas, and in your gateway community as well, and at your home. So light should always have these 5 principles. So what is useful light? Useful light should have a clear purpose. Before installing or replacing a light, determine if that light is needed. Consider how the light will impact the area, including wildlife and the environment. Consider using reflective paints or self-luminous markers for signs or curbs and steps to reduce the need for permanently installed outdoor lighting. This picture on the right shows a really cool idea. It's a glow-in-the-dark highway in the Netherlands, and it's interactive. So we know that in some busy highways, it's important to have lighting to for safety purposes, and to keep people on the road. But these lights only turn on when there's cars on the road, and it only lights the sections of the road around and in front of them. So it reduces the amount of light in the environment, but it's also useful. This light over here, in the dead of night, it would be important to be able to see the stairs so that you're walking, so you don't trip, and so that you can make your way safely up the stairs. So that is useful lighting. But some of the most unuseful lighting I want to highlight is behind here, which is landscape lighting. So this light shoots directly into the nocturnal environment. It is not useful. It can impact nocturnal pollinators and can impact the phenological cycle of the trees, and also spills a lot of excess light into the nocturnal environment that could affect birds and other wildlife. So your light should be targeted. It should only be directed where it is needed, and you can use shielding and careful aiming, especially with LEDs, to target the direction of the light beam so that it points downward and does not spill beyond where it is needed. So you can see here the light is needed on the doors so that visitors can get access to their hotel rooms whenever they enter this area, but the light isn't shining on the mountain behind this. And this is a sports field. Sports fields are notorious for excess of light, but you can see here that all the light here is going directly on the sports field and not in the area around it. So we should also use low light levels. Low light should be no brighter than necessary. Both of these lights in this image have a lot of glare, we'll call them glare bombs, and that can cause discomfort for people using these areas. So using the lowest level of light required is important, and being mindful that surface conditions, some surface conditions reflect more light into the night sky than intended. So for example, snow can reflect more light in the wintertime and could mean that you could dim your lights in the wintertime when snow is on the ground. Both of these lights shine into the buildings nearby. So I'm sure this light was intended for this roadway, not intended to shine into these windows. Same thing for this light. And I would say this is one of the hardest ones to achieve. When people are buying lights for their parking lot or their street, they don't always know how bright to make them. And if you find yourself with a light that's too bright, there are off-the-shelf dimming solutions. This is just one example that you can buy to install on your light to dim that light, and that can also extend the life of the luminaire. So light should be controlled and should only be used when it's necessary. Just because a light is there does not mean it needs to be turned on. Even Homer Simpson is here to remind us that a light that functions in on mode also functions in off mode. So a control can be as easy as something as a switch, just to turn it off when it's not in use. But there are also controls like timers or motion detectors to ensure that light is available when it is needed, dimmed when possible, and turned off when not needed. While reducing brightness might be one of the hardest things to do when choosing light, choosing the appropriate color temperature is one of the easiest things to do. So the National Park Service and the IDA suggest we use warm lights under 3,000 Kelvin. So this is an example of a street in LA that went from high pressure sodium to LED lights. And so these are about 4,000 K lights. So you can see what that color temperature looks like here. So the use of warmer color lights when possible is important, in the reduction of shorter wavelength blue light is also important for the natural environment. But also in 2016, the American Medical Association actually adopted guidance to reduce harm to human health from blue violet lights. And they also suggest using lights under 3,000 Kelvin. So it's also easier on the eyes, produces less glare. If you walk around your neighborhood and see the difference between these cool lights and these warm lights, you'll notice that difference as well. So now that you understand why lighting in parks is important and what lighting should look like, the next question is, how do we change that lighting? And if your park is relatively small, maybe it has less than 30 outdoor lights, this could just mean changing a few of those problem lights out or removing the ones that don't seem to have a clear purpose. It's really easy. But if your park is larger, you will need some way to organize that. And a lighting inventory can help to manage and evaluate the hundreds of outdoor lights that a park has. A lighting inventory is a way to keep track of all the lights in your park and the attributes about them that make them night sky friendly. Having a lighting inventory is the easiest way to assure you're protecting the natural nighttime environments efficiently. And you can see here, this is Oregon Caves. They have already inventoried 124 lights. In the lights that they've inventoried are all points on this map. So you can click on each one of these points and find out more attributes about them. Or if you want to know what kind of lighting you have in your park, you can say, well, most of it is for an entranceway, or we have a lot of pathway lighting and parking lot lighting as well. So this can give you an idea of what your lighting in your park is used for, and give you some information about your lights as well. Sherilyn is going to talk a little bit about what a lighting inventory looks like, but before that, we do that, it leads us to our last poll question. Christy, can you put that on the screen?
Sure, I got that started for you, Ashley. While people are responding to this quick poll question, I just want to remind people too that if you have questions that come up, you can go ahead and enter those in the question box, and we'll ask those at the end here in a few minutes. So I'll just pause here and let some more people answer, Ashley.
Okay.
It's kind of a hard question. You got to really think about it. Like,
I know.
The light
it is hard
around.
Yeah, it's easier if you have very few lights. If you have thousands of lights, it's hard to get an estimate.
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and close it. We've had some good responses. Okay, looks like we have some work to do here. As you can see from the results, about a third have like 25% or less that are sky friendly. That's just an estimate though. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Ashley, and Sherilyn.
Okay, yeah, that is really interesting and not totally surprising either. And I'm glad you guys are here to learn about the lighting inventory so we can talk about how to get more night sky friendly lighting. Sherilyn, do you have control? I think I see you moving the mouse.
Okay, I think so. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so I thought it would be a good idea if we did an experiment on the lighting inventory, because one of the things is, let's just do an experimental field visit so that we can go through kind of the process that happens, and then I'll go back through and explain how we get to this point. So if we're going to go ahead and start our inventory, we want to make sure that we can get there. So you need to get to the sites that you're going to want to get to. You want to make sure you have your equipment with you before you leave. And then you're going to drive to your site. And in this case, I drove to the Bodie Lighthouse. And from there, you're there. It's in the daytime. You want to make sure that you can find all the lights. You want to check them. You want to go through and do your day inventory, right? Because it's the daytime. You can check things. You can read things. You can go around and find things, but you don't actually know if the lights are working or not. So you go through, you do your day inventory. Then I was lucky enough to go have dinner on the beach and take a break. And then the sun set, and I could go back out, and then I could do the nighttime inventory. And what you need to do then, how do we get to that point that we want to do the inventory? Well, our inventory process, and we've worked on this for about 3 years with a number of different parks, and you'll see that some of the parks have completed it, some are in the starting stages, but we have been working on this. And the first thing we need to do in the inventory process is meet with the Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division. I will probably say NSNSD from now on. And then what we do is we work with the park and develop a specific inventory needs for that park. And then the park can go out, collect their data, do the actual inventory of the lighting. Then we can analyze that data and see what needs to remain, what can be replaced, what needs to be removed. And I think one of the great things about a lighting inventory is it's great for the natural resource, the night skies, but it also, through this, can actually reduce your energy costs and make things safer. So once we analyze this, we figure out what our motives are, what meets the needs of the individual parks, then we can go revisit the lights that need to be retrofitted. So when you meet with us, and generally that's done through a technical assistance request, we might call them a TAR, or meeting with one of our regional support staff, like Ashley. And then you meet with them, or you send in a TAR, and then we'll get a remote meeting going. And it starts with setting up a group for that park, making sure that we have a new database for them so that they can do their inventory, reviewing some of the lighting inventory data dictionary. That way we understand what fields, why we're collecting the data, how it can be used. And then we have the advantage through time of writing up some materials. So we have some materials that you can use with our first meeting. That's the standard operating procedure for the lighting inventory, the database, and the lighting inventory that you can modify if you want to. And then afterwards, we have documents to help you do backups, to download the photographs if you want the photographs separate from the data, a number of different, I kind of call them how-tos. So after you meet with us and we make some decisions, the next step is actually then to go through the lighting inventory database to see what are the reduced, we call it a reduced, we went from hundreds to about 19 fields that actually are needed to meet the needs of a lighting inventory. And the document that we'll go through with the parks, it has 3 parts. It lists all of the spatial data file attributes. Then we have details of the data that will be collected, and I'll go through that for this field task. And then we have a list of the domains, and those are basically the pull down options so that the individual parks will know what they're going out there, what their options are when they're in the field. And going through this data dictionary and looking at the different fields, for example, task, depending upon your specialty, may mean something else. For the data dictionary, it means what is the task of the light? Is it a decorative light? Is it a roadway light? Is it a wayfinding light? So it's actually the task that the light, the luminaire, will be used for. So let me quickly go through, just because we did narrow this down, go through the 10-day attributes. So remember when we went to the field, I did a day visit and a night visit. Well, in the day visit, what the data collector will do is you'll go out, you'll tell them who you are, you're the surveyor. That's a pull down. Then you have a day visit, which basically is the date, and that has a default of today, but you can modify it. The height of the light, the task, which we just went through, the lumen type, the number of lamps on that, the type of lamp, is it LED, is it metallic hydride, whatever type of lamp's out there, the controls for the lamp, is the lamp actually damaged or not damaged? And then the archive has to do with, is it a revisit or is it your first time out? After the day attributes, after we've had a nice little dinner, then the night attribute. Or you may have a second person go out and do the nighttime attributes. And then the nighttime attributes, some of the nice things are you can see, you get a different date because you might not be able to go on the same day. Is the luminaire operating at night? So when you go to the lighthouse during the day, you don't see the light. Is it actually on? So you just want to know, is it on? Is it not on? You're going to look at that. When Ashley was talking earlier about the color, you're going to look for the correlated color temperature, and you need a spectrometer to do that. And I'll talk about that in a minute. You can collect the lumens. You can look at for the glare, the backlit or uplit. Is it actually meeting the task needs? Is it directed where it needs to be directed? And then you have the option at night to make some notes. This was damaged, but it still turns on. Or this looked great during the day, but it's not turning on at night. It needs to be replaced. And then a recommended action. And recommended action is a pull down. Should it be retrofitted? Should the lamp be replaced? Should it be removed? Should it be retained? Is there no action? And that can be the surveyor at the time, the data collection person's feeling in the field. One of the nice things about these daily attributes, and I'll talk about it again, is they can be modified. This isn't, written in stone. So once we know what the fields are that people will be collecting in the field, maybe your park has some special lighting needs, right? So for example, Cape Hatteras has to have turtle-friendly lighting, but that wouldn't be necessary if you were at Rocky Mountain National Park. But Rocky Mountain National Park may have some specific needs. And those are all things that we can talk about. We can help you. We can add those fields, work with you on the fields, add the fields. Once that's all done and everybody's on the same page, then what we can do is create your package or your AGL account. We already made the group, so then we can add a map, add a dashboard, and then the person's ready to the data collection process. The third step in the process is ready to go. That means that you have to get ready for the field. So you need your field tools. So you need a data entry. It turns out this works with a free app, and that app will work on an iPad, an iPhone, an Android. You'll need a spectrometer. During the day, you probably want a hat. At night, you probably want a headlamp. You might want a charger for your data entry, pencil, paper, water, any optional things. What I was trying to say here is you probably know more what you want in the field than I do, but for this task, you really need your data entry, your spectrometer, and your ability to get to the site. And so real quick, one of the things I want to talk about is the spectrometer. The spectrometer allows you to look at the light, the luminance, what's coming out of the light, and it also gives you some advantages of looking at the illuminance. Where is it hitting? Like Ashley said, sometimes when you're trying to light a parking lot, you don't actually know where the light's going to go. Well, in a park, we want to make sure the light is going to the right place. And if it is or if it isn't, how much light is being measured off task. And we, at the Park Service at NSNSD, we use two different spectrometers. We use an MK350, which is the top one, which is really easy. Align it with a light, press a button for a measurement, and then read the digital output. And I put the digital output here, and it turns out that the only thing that's required for the data entry for your for your lighting inventory right now is that top field, the CCT. So you take that number and you type it into your field, into your data entry form. However, one of the great things is when you press that button, it actually records 29 different fields that if we're going to look into some other things during the analysis, we still have that information. And that's a nice addition to using the spectrometer. That's the same with the Passport. Ashley tends to use that. Passport is an excellent tool also. Both of them will give you the CCT value that is needed to understand that light and to figure out the correlated color temperature. And is it night friendly? So understanding that we're now in the field with our data entry tablet. In my case, I use an iPhone. So you open up the Collector app, then you pick the map that you're going to be using, then you pick a point. So if you look here, you can see this right here is where you select, I'm going to add a point right here. That will bring up on your iPhone or iPad or Android phone the form that you need to fill out. So then you go ahead and you fill out this form. This actually takes about anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. It doesn't take very long, and it's fairly easy to do. And if you look at being there at night, sometimes some of your lights, for example here, these are all bollards. They're all the same light. You can copy the point, go to the next light, take the measurement for the CCT, because although these all look the same, I know from having done the data collection that they can run from 2700K up to over 4100K. So we still want to measure each one of these to make sure that the lamps are giving you the information or putting out the light that we think that they should be putting out. And once you've done your inventory and you've gone out and done your data collection, both your night and day, you've completed that inventory. And the nice thing about the inventory is the map that you used while you were doing your data collection is accessible to anyone in your group, in your ArcGIS Online group. And I generally tend to call that the AGOL group. And they can pick any point here, and that point will come up with a list of all the fields that have been filled in and with a photograph. It turns out that if you could slide this down a little bit more, you'd see the photograph. But that's all accessible. It also allows you, looking at this map, is let's say you got really tired at night and you thought about this and you said, I wasn't really sure I did the backlight correctly. I said moderate, but I went here and I realized there's nothing going actually behind the light. I might want to change that to negligible. So using the information you've collected in the field, you can review it or you can make changes if you feel that's necessary. Along with looking at individual points, the dashboard will give you an aggregate view. So this is Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park's lighting inventory, and this was done by Eric Meyer, and I'd like to thank him for all the work he's done and working with us on developing what are the essential fields that were needed. It turns out his park actually has different sections. So what his dashboard does is it tells you he's done 2,600 lights, right? He has done it at 4 different sections of the park. And then here you have the different lamp types. And this area here talks about the recommended action. So if they're looking at analyzing the results, they have this aggregate display that they can talk about, look at, and pull up data to discuss and work on the analysis of the data. So when they do that, one of the fields that we had, remember, was recommended action. You can actually look at the map in different ways. In this case, what I've done is I've color-coded it. Which ones of these lights? These 2 right here need to be completely replaced. Some of them need to be removed because they're no longer necessary. And then some there's no action at all. Just leave them. They're working fine, and they already meet dark sky friendly lighting. The great thing, and I think most people that collect data, they like to know that data is being used. All of the data that you collect in the field can be used to help with the lighting management plan. And this is great because all of the points on here actually already have lighting plans that you can look at or use to help you write a plan, find a park that has similar lighting, and it gives you a starting point. And what that means is twofold. One is if you are going to apply for IDA certification, you will need a lighting plan. Second of all, the Park Service in general likes to have plans, and plans need to be informed by data. So doing all this allows us to have the data to inform the plans so that we can actually then go back and revisit and use best practices in the lighting plan to do the retrofits or to make the decisions about how we're going to install the night sky friendly luminaires. And remember, we always want to keep the five principles. We want to keep the 5 principles in mind. And once you have the lighting plan, you have it pretty much forever, and it's updatable, and it is something that everybody can use. And with that, we're done with the 5 processes of our lighting inventory that we have worked with parks to develop for use within the National Park System. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Ashley.
Yeah, thanks, Sherilyn. That was a great explanation of what a lighting inventory is. And I just wanted to close out today letting everyone know that resources are available to help. NSNSD can make a template for your inventory, so you can start this in ArcPro or ArcMap. And we can let you borrow a limited number of spectrometers or give you advice on what spectrometers to buy. This lighting inventory can be used to help inform decisions, like if your park may have lapsed funds or a year of in money because, travel restrictions this year or other things caused by, all the events of 2020 have left a little extra money. You can look at your lighting inventory and say, we know we'll need 40 new lights for an entrance egress. So it can be a good way to responsibly spend year-end funds. What we can provide is the template, but you'll need to provide volunteers, interns, or staff to be able to go around and collect the attributes about each of the lights. There's also support groups on the Common Learning Portal. There's a new group called the Outdoor Lighting Group on the CLP. We just started it, and there's not a lot of information on there yet. One of the first pieces of information that'll go on there is this webinar, and then we'll start to slowly populate that with more information about not only outdoor lighting inventories, but best practices. So you'll be able to find some links. After this webinar, we're going to post some of those links on the Outdoor CLP. Currently, there's an astronomy CLP that has a lot of information about night sky interpretation. That CLP is really active and is a good place to get information if you need it today. We have an NPS principles for night sky friendly lighting, as well as the IES and IDA principles that I shared earlier. And one thing that I did want to touch on is International Dark Sky certification. If your park is doing this because they want to achieve International Dark Sky certification, I just wanted to go briefly through the process. Communication is really important for this. You need to, if your park is interested, we suggest getting superintendent and regional approval, letting NSNSD know so that we can share information with you. You can plan on sending out a press release so that you can let folks know, hey, we're an IDA certified park. You can plan to do stakeholder outreach with your community and also have night sky programs within the park. The application process, the writing of the application, is very similar to what we ask national park units to do anyway, but the application is just a way to put all of that information together. So we'll have parks do a lighting inventory. We also would want to make sure that lighting is compliant with all the best management practices and that there's a lighting management plan. And then we also take night sky quality measurements, like that one that I showed of Acadia earlier in the talk today. So that really sums up most of what we wanted to discuss with you today. It sums up, the lighting inventory pretty quickly. So if you have any questions about the lighting inventory or night sky resource protection in general, or how NSNSD can help, let us know. We are happy to take some questions now. And thanks so much for attending.
Hey, thanks, Ashley and Sherilyn. That was really great. I think a lot of people who attended just kind of really appreciate just, real practical information that you guys are sharing, and it's very helpful. I do want to remind people there's still time to ask questions. If you have them, just go ahead and enter them in. But we do have a few that have come in, so let's just kind of see if we can get them answered here. There's a couple questions about the tools specifically, like, are there standard databases that people can use? Like Lori at Capitol Reef says that they have a simple Excel file and it's clunky, and I'm sure that other parks have probably run into that same issue.
Yeah, I'll take that if it's okay. The database that we use really is a geodatabase that is accessible on ArcGIS Online. It works through through ArcGIS Pro, or you can get to it through ArcGIS Desktop. But with that said, you can always convert that to any database as long as you have all the information on the different fields and the different files. But the GIS, you can use it as a shape file, but if you use it on ArcGIS Online, it'll be there and you can access it from anywhere. So we're using geodatabases for this because there's such a spatial and a temporal component to the lighting inventories. And you can read in Excel files to that if you have XY coordinates for your lights. Did that answer it?
Sherilyn, I'd just like to add to that. That there are a few parks that had completely done their lighting inventories outside of this platform and have found it easier to then go back. And you can do this all if you already have all the information, you can do this all in the office. So you can just populate information about those lights completely in the office if you already have all of the data. And it's, in my opinion, an easier way to keep track of what changes have been made.
Okay, yeah, and I think too, there's maybe as a concern that some of those geodatabase, like you have to have a certain level of ability to use that software, so it can be a little intimidating maybe to people who aren't trained on that. So I don't know, maybe we have resources for that.
Yeah, that's great, because I'm also on the GIS training for the National Park System, and we have some quick tutorials. However, we're aware of that at NSNSD, and we have tried to put all of that in the how-tos and the information. And ArcGIS Online has really tried hard to make it for people that aren't doing spatial analysis, but actually just want to do data entry and want to look at maps. So I would be more than happy, and I'm sure Ashley would too, to talk to anyone that thinks it might be harder to go that route, because they've actually worked really, really hard to make it easier. I agree, it used to be you had to be a specialist to do it, but that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, okay, and I'll just say that setting, sorry. I'll just say that setting up the inventory is the hard part. And we're here to help. We're here to do that part. The data collection and data entry is the easy stuff. So you guys can do that. I've had faith in all of you. So
excellent. Moving on to the spectrometers, there's a question about if there are any automated ones that maybe you could leave in the field and program it to take measurements over a set period of time.
Wow, that's a great question. Whoever wrote that question, please contact me, or you can just do it through the Soundscape. Right now, off the top of my head, I don't. That's not something I know much about, is the automated ones. But I can find out, and I will. And Jeremy might know.
Yeah, and there's a cell phone spectrometer, Sherilyn, that you worked on for a little while, but it turns out that it doesn't give very accurate information. But the spectrometer is really there to not provide night sky quality data, but just give you information about the particular light. And so that particular light, while it will change through time, will not change significantly. And that spectrometer is really providing information about, the most important thing for right now is the color correlated temperature or the color of the light bulb. There are tools to leave out to better understand the quality of your night sky, and you can contact us about those too.
Okay, let's move on here a little bit. Question, just real quick, the slide deck, we'll make that available, correct, after this? We had a couple of people wondering about that. And then what about use of the lighting inventory outside of DOI, like Forest Service spaces or National Scenic Area?
We would love to share our tool.
Yeah, and the only hang up with that is that they have to have access to ArcGIS Online. But if they do, then we can share our tool. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a little bit of good news today. Okay, do you guys have a list of which parks have conducted inventories and kind of the actions that they took?
We do have a list, but I don't know it off the top of my head. Bob would have that list in our office. Yeah.
Okay, well, we can follow up on that afterward too.
Yeah.
And I wonder if part of it is the question.
Oh, go ahead.
Ashley and I talk at the same time. Sorry. I wonder if part of that question too is, like if there are like templates of the lighting inventories and the lighting management plan available that that people can use, so they're not reinventing the wheel and starting over from scratch.
Yeah, I put up a map here, and this map I got from IDA's website, and this includes national parks, but it also includes state parks, communities that have done lighting management plans and have done lighting inventories as a part of that. There are parks not included on this map that have done lighting inventories or have just done lighting management plans. So this is a good place to start, but it's a mixed bag. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Looking to see what we haven't answered yet. Okay. Do you have links to appropriate lighting fixtures and bulbs recommendations that may be available on GSA that we could provide to facilities people?
That's a great question. We have someone working on that right now in the department. We have a lighting specialist. And so that will be on the CLP, and we'll have links to that. Currently, they're trying to get it finalized, so we don't have anything right now but it is in the works, and I'm going to say, is immediate to be released, but it's not out as of today.
And if you're looking for things today, the IDA website has some suggestions about night sky friendly lighting, but it's not on GSA. It's not related to that. So yeah, we're working on it.
Okay, good. Let's see. Yeah, this kind of a similar question is about, just how difficult it is to find fixtures for specific needs. And like maybe if there's like a database that has like light fixtures for like specific needs with like manufacturer, model, light output metrics and things like that after they've been installed. Do you know anything about that? If that's in the works anywhere?
Yeah, that's all
Ashley?
going to be wrapped up. Yeah, that's all going to be wrapped up in what we're doing, connecting it with GSA lighting. So hopefully that will be coming out soon and will be put on the Common Learning Portal. But in the meantime, you know, I answer questions as often as I can for parks when they are hung up on a particular type of light or can't figure out what kind of light to use that's night sky friendly. If there's a park, you know, especially in my region, there's a Southeast regional employee, Grace Carpenter, and an Alaska regional employee. I don't know their unified region numbers off the top of my head, but they also help parks in those areas to find lighting that is appropriate for them too. And then if you're not represented by any of those regions, you can contact the office in Fort Collins, and we can figure out how to help you if you are at a roadblock with picking out a particular light for an area.
Yeah, and I would say we really do enjoy helping you. And if you call us because you have a request for a specific light, just think of it as you're helping other parks, because the more instances or questions that we get, the more we can address it in the documents that we publish online.
Yeah, thanks, Sherilyn. And I think that was part of the tone behind the question too, was just like sharing those successes that parks have had, so that everyone can kind of know about the successes and then learn from them as well. We have another question about the recommended number of site visits, or is it dependent on the landscape characteristics? And I'm thinking that this is about like when you do these, when do the season that you choose to do your lighting inventory.
Yeah, I mean, some parks are closed, you know, in the wintertime. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do it then. So my only suggestion would be to go do the lighting inventory when most of your lights are actually functional, and to, you know, make sure that if your lights are turned on only for 1 week out of the year, that you get the metrics on those lights at that time, and then just populate the notes and say that these lights aren't on very frequently, or yeah, because I've done lighting inventories at parks where the lights aren't on very often, and so then you can't get the metrics to better understand the qualities of those lights. So whenever your lights are on and whenever is the most comfortable time to go out, that's what I would suggest.
Okay.
I would second that.
Well, okay, we have a consensus. Great. We are getting close to the top of the hour. There was just one more comment about how International Dark Sky Park applications, all of those are available on the IDA's website, in case people want to look at those. I did want to mention, I did put a ton of links. Go ahead, Ashley.
No, that's okay.
Okay, I was just going to say, I did put a bunch of links in there. Yep, so people can access that. And if you have any questions, you can send me an email, and I'll route it to Ashley, or you can send one to Ashley or Sherilyn, and we'll get you answered up here. But with that, I would just like to thank Ashley and Sherilyn, and for all of you who attended. And we're going to go ahead and close her up for the day. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, everyone. Bye.